This is another video in the series about evolution as the basis of faith. We spoke last time about the great controversy that sprung up between science and religion following the advent of the theory of evolution. This is very important because in fact evolution was the great force that split between science and evolution in a very strong way. And today we will speak about the third implication of evolution, that of people who viewed evolution in much the way that I am doing this in these series of videos as an indication of how God works in the world, i.e. they do not deny the facts, but they still claim that the facts are compatible with a theological worldview and do not require a reductionistic worldview. So this third party who would see the work of God in evolution was in fact the object of an onslaught by both scientists and religious people. Thus, for example, Teilhard de Chardin was viciously attacked on both sides. The Catholic Church prohibited his writings because his belief in evolution led him to clear heterodoxy. And on the other hand, the scientists with a materialistic and reductionistic bent were very angry that he was injecting a spiritual significance into the evolutionary facts, and they also fought against him. The usual attitude of those who would find God in evolution arises from this great pressure that is created by the stress that scientific discoveries place on religion. The approach of those who would find God in religion is to search, God in evolution, is to search a place into which God may be introduced. This approach was given the epithet of God of the gaps, like a sort of God that is constantly shrinking and is used to explain what science cannot explain, such as the origin of life, etc. However, quite contrary to this God of the gaps attitude, the perspective that we have adopted here is that evolution reveals the purpose of the world, the purpose of the cosmos, and there is no importance how everything originated, if the source is chemical and structural, and if the mechanisms of life are something mechanical, because the mechanics of evolution are just a scenery for the act itself, for the play itself, just as our bodies are mechanisms, but they are but scenery for our personality. They are the backdrop. When we see how evolution develops, when we see the trend of evolution, we see also that this trend, this direction of development is a kind of personality of evolution. And we have no problem with the fact that this personality is carried on the back of mechanical and chemical elements that have developed and are also in evolutionary processes themselves that preceded life by many years. Life can be mechanical, chemical, and divine at one and the same time. Just as the human body itself is completely comprised of chemical and mechanical materials, and yet it is alive, and it has a unique personality that cannot be explained as the sum of its parts. This argument surrounding evolution in fact forces all those who believe in Scripture according to the literal sense to reject evolution. The great contradictions between such findings as 14 billion years of existence and 6,000 years of creation presented by the Bible, between ancient man, between Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalis, and the like, and man as described in Genesis, and the geological idea, and between the geological idea and the flood, all these contradictions cannot be settled, cannot be solved when one reads the text of the Scriptures, a fundamentalist reading. This fundamentalist reading indeed calls for a decision that is either or, black or white. Indeed, this strong dissension is something that is constantly becoming deeper. In the 18th century, Protestant thinkers were still talking about two books, the one written by God and the one written by nature. Boyle in 1660 was quoted to have said, "A page in the great book of nature full of true hieroglyphics, some of them representing words and characters." So Protestant Reformation of the 16th century particularly emphasized the feasibility in the direct contact of each Christian with the Scripture without relying on the interpretation of monks, such as was the tradition in Catholicism. This also pushed them to encourage the reading of the book of nature by themselves without relying on traditional interpretations of institutional authority. The direct experience of nature was considered as valuable as it was perceived as contact with the text that is essentially divine. However, after Darwin, it is now very clear that God does not shape his world according to the literal interpretation of the Bible. This situation leads believers to adhere to their interpretation with more force and to deny evolution. And as far as we are concerned, they thereby also deny the actual way in which God is directing his world and managing his world.